it's Heidi from Lively Hope, and today I'm going to show you how I use up extra thread. I do a lot of stitching. I design embroidery and a few cross-stitch kits and patterns, as well as selling finished pieces, and I do more like fine art, wool painting, thread painting type pieces as well. And so I tend to have a lot of extra thread. And I was thinking the other day about how I use that in varying levels, how I work to use up the excess that I have. So I have 3 or 4 projects I'm going to show you today as examples of what I do with extra thread. Of course, if there is enough of a skein of thread, I just wrap it around a bobbin like this and store it in my thread box, which I was going to show you, but I did not bring in here. So, you've seen these. And then if I have extra full threads that have not been divided, I keep those in this jar. It is incredibly full, and I find that hilarious because over the past several months to a year, I have been working actively on using this up. And I made this giant piece. This is 24 inches across, 2 feet in diameter. I made this huge piece using only thread from here. And it still looks like I haven't even put a dent in it. So that just tells you how much thread a mason jar can hold. Not only that, but I also used thread to make this giant piece. It's not giant, but it does use up a lot of thread. I don't really have a name for these. One of my kids asked me if they were supposed to be worms or snakes. They're not really supposed to be anything. I really just like to use up what I have, and I really love the color play here. I really like to see how colors interact, changing from warm colors to cool colors, or blending into different color families. That is fun for me. So that's what those two. This will be number 1. Worm creations. I don't know. If you have a suggestion for what I should call those, I'm all ears. Just leave it in the comments. Okay. Number 2, often when I am working on small pieces, like this little guy, this is handmade wool felt with embroidery over the top. Do I have to do this thing so you can see it? I don't know. I'm hoping it's focusing. Anyway, so you can see I've used red thread, I've used green thread, I've used gray thread for the detail. And often that means I have split apart some embroidery thread and I have leftover bits left. That's not a full 6 strands. And so I don't want to necessarily put it back into my bobbin box. So I like to keep a project next to me that I can use those, just finish up what's on my needle. And this is the one I'm currently working on. It's a work in progress. I do plan to have it completely filled out before I finish. But so I'll just take whatever little bits of thread I have. Like you can see here I had just a tiny bit of this coral color. And I just made a little flower there. I had a little green right here. And so over time, I just fill that in. So next time I have some green left over, I might come and make a little stem there. Or if I have even just the smallest amount, let's see, I'll do like these little stars right here. And I, of course, have my needle minder there. So it's a work in progress. All of it will be filled in eventually. But this is my current kind of big catch-all for when I have thread that needs to be used up. I also might keep a little slow stitching project. This is when I finished. I have a video on it, a needle book that I finished. But just as an example, you could keep a slow stitching project nearby and add just a little bit of detail to it each time you finish, or you have some thread left on your needle at the end of your current actual stitching project. And then the final idea that I have not worked on this a ton yet because I'm working on that bigger piece mostly, but you could keep some Aida cloth nearby and just add to it as you have thread to use up. So on this one, I just did a rectangle this way and then a rectangle that way. My idea is to fill this all the way over time with just random square shapes, square and rectangle shapes. And then you could have a bookmark, which I also have a video on how I finish bookmarks using felt on the back. So I will link that below as well. But I think those are all of my ideas. Yeah. So that's four ideas that you could use. This big worm or some tiny florals, both in big hoops. You could, of course, do this in smaller hoops as well. I just really like the effect of a large hoop. You could do a slow stitching project, or you could do something cross stitch. This could, of course, even be a bigger thing that you make into a pouch or even just a more abstract looking wall hanging or something. So those are my ideas for using up extra thread as you're working on other stitching projects. I would love to hear how you use up your thread, or do you just throw it away? That's also completely valid. I don't like to have a big stockpile of stuff on hand, and I do like to see how much use I can get out of the products and supplies that I have. So for me, it's fun to find different uses for the excess thread from other projects. It may not be that way for you, and that's totally fine. We can still be friends. Until next time, happy stitching. So here's my little setup. I am currently working on finishing these felt ornaments, stuffing them with polyfill, and then finishing them up like this. I will add a hanging string to all of them at once.